You can and should give the big bad evil guy of your campaign one hit point. Be they a great worm red dragon, an ancient all powerful lich, or the rabbit of Chernabog. Each of them only require one hit point. This episode was inspired by the 16 hit point dragon written by Sage Latora on latora.org and the 1 hit point dragon by Clayton Notestein at explorersdesign.com. Links to the full articles below. So, why would you give the big, bad, final, badass, evil guy at the end of your campaign only one hit point? How would that even be a challenge? This kind of thinking goes entirely against conventional ttrpg and game design. You're supposed to hit the big, bad, evil guy as many times as it takes until that big number is, well, not so big. Maybe you heal yourself some way or have to regroup, but that's how the base mechanic goes. In this presumed state, the standard challenge of defeating a dragon is doing more damage to it while keeping your own hit points up. And this is what we usually balance games around. A level 3 fighter deals, on average, 12 damage per round, and has 25 hit points. So when they fight 2 goblins with 8 hit points each, and they each deal 3 points of damage per round, most of the time the fighter will take 9 damage before they can kill the 2 goblins. There's a little more math going into that, but you get the idea. If our dragon only has 1 hit point, the fight would be over almost immediately. But that's also not how fun storytelling works. Achilles didn't use his action surge to slowly grind down Hector over the course of several rounds of combat, and let's face it, a lot of these big encounters kinda turn into a slog. So let's take some inspiration from classical literary and mythological monsters. Rumpelstiltskin tears himself in half after a woman guesses his name. Smaug, the great fire drake from The Hobbit, was slain by a single arrow. Dracula was slain by a wooden stake, and not during combat with Van Helsing. All of these monsters were defeated not by force and tactics, but as puzzles to be solved, answers sought, and tools gathered. Smaug had a single weak point in his armor that could only be exploited by a royal heirloom, the Black Arrow. The true nature of Dracula had to be discovered by Van Helsing. Then, he had to be outsmarted so they could catch him sleeping and powerless. Rumpelstiltskin was taken out by true name speaking and some light stalking. Without these weaknesses, any damage dealt would do nothing, or at least nothing permanent. So, how do we add this to our games? You must make your dragon, or BBEG, or whatever, a puzzle to be solved. Let's draft some ideas out. What is that legendary armor that makes them invincible, and how do we get around it? Now, when I say armor, I don't mean proper or physical armor, I mean what kept the dragon from being slain before. There's been other heroes. A simple way to put this might be immunity to all weapons, or reforms at a hidden location. These are classics. We want this to be the kind of thing it takes a quest or two to answer. Maybe the party needs something unique, not just a +4 Holy Avenger, but something special, maybe tied to their backstory, or directly to their legendary armor. The evil wizard Kato has a heart made of stone, so you have to find someone who can forge a sword that can cut through stone.
This was forged to kill only one person, Kato!
Where are you going to find that? Now, once we have this, we can start thinking about how we want to set up this battle. The party's got the answers, they know the weaknesses, now what? How do we make that final climactic fight sing with only 1 hit point? Our dragon needs to make the actual act of slaying him difficult, not just something requiring a good die roll at the right time. That's also just good design in general. Never rely on the dice to move the story forward. A well-timed critical is always nice, but if Bard the Bowman had missed his shot with the Black Arrow, what would have happened? Let's say he rolled badly. They'd have to fish the arrow out from the bottom of the lake. Instead, try setting up a puzzle utilizing teamwork between the members of your party. Perhaps the dragon needs to be brought to the ground so they can strike it in the weak point with the soul-piercing lance. Or it's raising a city and you have to rescue civilians while trying to catch it. A fantastic example of this is actually in Delicious in Dungeon with their fight with the Red Dragon. Maybe the battlefield is changing under the hero's feet. Perhaps there's an army of minions making even getting to the dragon difficult. Maybe the only way to make them vulnerable is to stand in a specific spot and use an action to counter their spells. Maybe having them behind a wall of hellfire, invisible and stalking the party, or shifting incorporeal and disappearing behind walls, can all be challenges that, while not necessarily their legendary armor, still make the combat difficult and worth planning for. There are additional complications for your players to overcome. All of the steps of this can be as big or small as feels right for your game. A whole campaign can start with the BBEG causing chaos and destruction, slaying all the high-level heroes who might have otherwise stood a chance. But they don't know the secret weakness. They might have to travel to a specific sage, library, or another monster in order to learn the weakness and how to exploit it. They might have to create a weapon themselves, track down a legendary one to another location, or appease a higher power to attain what they need. Only after all of that can they finally return and fight the BBEG in a huge cinematic battle. This level of complication is also very important to making the combat feel satisfying. You need to have enough steps or tasks that, even accomplishing this, the BBEG still feels maybe unbeatable. And what that looks like is going to differ from table to table and party to party. The BBEG's single hit point also doesn't preclude them from hitting like a fucking Mack truck. In fact, give them some extra abilities, whatever fits their archetype. They might not even have a proper stat block. Simply effects that happen. If our big bad evil guy manifests as a hurricane strength storm, what kind of stats would you even give that? One of the biggest bonuses to this can be highlighted by an old D&D sourcebook, Deities and Demigods. In that book, they create stat blocks for not just all the standard D&D gods of Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms, but also real-world mythological ones as well. And because these are powerful gods, they have all sorts of bonuses. They're level 40, they always roll nat 20s. They know what's happening anytime anyone speaks their name or around anything in their portfolio. If a party decides they want to kill a god, it's not easy, but this is important. It is possible.
Leads. We can kill it.
Through clever gameplay and maybe a lenient GM, it is possible to defeat a god in direct combat because it has a stat block. Learning from this lesson, it's been a consistent design point in the Planescape setting to never give the Lady of Pain a stat block. She is simply not to be fought and will win any fight against her. She's as strong as she needs to be to get the point across. Making your BBEG invincible except for their one weakness allows you to let the party interact with them, forces your party to run when they're attacked, either because they know it's invincible or they're not going to assume it's a balanced encounter. And it also prevents that anticlimactic moment when your players do something clever and get a couple good die rolls and, beat your boss character before the end of the campaign. This also can have a fun side effect of encouraging your players to think creatively with their abilities. Casting Jump on the Barbarian to fastball special the Halfling Rogue right into the Dragon's weak point is exactly what D&D's about. That's a battle they're not going to soon forget. The one hit point dragon is also a fantastic way to get your players set on the track to care about the lore of the world, thinking creatively about how to solve the problem, and ending with a satisfying conclusion that they've earned every step of the way. If that's not the dream, I don't know what is. These kinds of battles can be used throughout your campaign and in all kinds of systems. The initial idea came from Dungeon World, but it's not hard to see how this would apply to 5th edition D&D, for example. Well, that's just about all the time that we have. If you have any questions, comments, or problems you'd like us to talk about, you can leave them in the comments below. Shoot us an email at biscuitwolfgames@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky at biscuitwolfgames. You can also find our own RPG supplements at itch.io and at DriveThruRPG under the Biscuit Wolf banner.